So I want to give you these examples of evaluating an expression. The way I always suggest to do is every time you see a letter, replace it with its number value inside a set of parentheses. If the parentheses aren't necessary, we'll determine that in the following step, not in the first step. Say, do I need parentheses or not? Just put them down, get them away from being letters. Then we'll continue and do the process. Some are more involved in these, but the concept will get you started. Here we have q minus 3. So what that's going to be is I want to have, where the q is, I want a 12 in parentheses minus 3. Why is that 12 in parentheses? Am I going to multiply it by negative 3? No. What the 12 is having, if you must have a reason, which is always good to have it available, there's 1 that isn't written in front of the 12. That turns this into 12, and our negative 3, of course, you know, I'll probably have this plus sign here. So now we're dealing with 12 plus negative 3. They work against each other. 12 subtracting 3, if you know it's 9, that's awesome. Otherwise, give this 7 more to 10 and that 7 more to 19. 19 minus 10 will get you the 9. 12 is positive and stronger, so our answer will be positive like that 12. Next one, 18 over w. So as we proceed to write the expression, 18 and over doesn't have any impact on what we're doing, but we need to get our w with a 6. So we put our 6 in there. Again, the parentheses will help us in situations when the problems become more complicated. We have to be able to handle that. The reason that 18 becomes 18 over parentheses around 6 becomes straight up 18 over 6 is because 1 times 6 will release it from the parentheses. These both divide by the 6 to get us to have 3 over 1, which will only be written as 3. If 3 over 1, you can write it. Connect Math will probably mark it wrong, and therefore you want to go back and Connect Math the next time and write it as only 3 or whatever that particular number is. That will help train you not to write it over 1, but you need to get to 3 over 1 before you can do that. And there is a huge difference between having a denominator of 1 and a numerator of 1, and we will work on that many times through the course. The next one is 8 over 5, nothing has changed. And this time for p, and I don't have the 20 back there because here come the parentheses with the 20 in it, and that's what takes over where the p is. So now this is the 8 over 5 multiplied by 20, but 20 is the same as 20 over 1. If it is an integer, it will be that integer over 1. Now we have nothing but fractions here. So 8 and 5 don't reduce by the same number. 8 and 1, nothing reduces with 1. 20 and 5 both divide by 5. So I'll divide the 5 by 5 right here, get 1. Divide the 20 by 5, and get 4. I've got 8 times 4 over 1 times 1. The top, when I multiply it out, will get me 32. And the bottom will get me 1. 32 over 1 is 32. Take care of that. What's the opposite of negative? 2/5. The opposite of negative would be looking positive, or at least not negative anymore, right? So I want to get the opposite, and here's my negative 2/5. So that's double dash in front of 25. It's the opposite of negative, and 2/5 is what follows. Now that's 2 dashes on the same term. If it's an odd number of dashes, you have a negative term. But it's not an odd number, it's 2, which is even. And therefore, we do not have a negative sign in our final result. Absolute value. Let me tell you, this is not 1 minus 3.71. Okay? This is not negative 1 times negative 2/9 times 1, or whatever that thing is doing. Those are absolute value signs. They're taller. They don't have caps on them at all. And this would be the opposite of the absolute value of 4. This is asking me, how big is negative 3.7? The answer is only 3.7. It's not actually positive, it's just 3.7. How about this one? I'm going to change the color of that to red so that you can see that red there as well. Now in these parentheses, the special pair of parentheses says how big is negative 2/9. Not is it positive or negative at all. What's the magnitude, the size of this number? All the black stuff there gets me 2/9. When you get away from having distinct colors, you can write it as negative 2 over 9, the opposite of 2 over 9. I often write it with the negative on top for lots of things and lots of reasons. You could even have the negative on the bottom, but I think that's the worst, leads to the most confusion and difficulty, but it's still acceptable. It has a single negative sign in a fraction that has a 2 in its numerator and a 9 in its denominator. Finally, this one. it's got an opposite sign out in front of a pair of parentheses that says, how big is 4? That's not negative 141, that's how big is 4? What's the size of a 4? And if you want to say to yourself, duh, 4, okay, cool, that's going to work. But the dash that's been out in front is still there, and now when it's brought into position of having us say what that now is called, that's called negative 4. And that's the help I wanted to give you with homework 4B. Again, remember, you can get in touch with me during the week if you have any other problems.